Hello and welcome to the Anti-Oppression Facilitation Workshop. This workshop will run for approximately 10 to 20 minutes with areas to pause for discussion. Before the start of the workshop, it is my job as facilitator to give a content warning for any potentially triggering or sensitive subject matter contained in this presentation. Potential topics discussed in this workshop include ableism, racism, and discussions on oppressive systems both in and outside the cooperative setting. As always, feel free to step out and take a break at any moment during the workshop. It is my responsibility to acknowledge that today we hold this workshop on the unceded territory of the Patwin peoples. The colonial settlement of Davis, California exists only as a result of genocide and colonialism. True repatriation can only be achieved through the return of the land and stewardship rights to the original indigenous peoples of this occupied land. I encourage you all, no matter where you are in the world, to take this time to acknowledge the land that you currently occupy. This workshop also aims to highlight the voices of queer, trans, Black, Indigenous, people of color, and LGBTQ plus two-spirit and other identifying individuals. Today's workshop has 4 outlined sections. 1, the role of facilitation. 2, oppression in the facilitation process. 3, best practices. And 4, discussion questions. And again, feel free to pause the workshop at any moment to allow for more group discussion. The role of facilitation. So what exactly is facilitation? Broadly defined, facilitation is a process to relay information in a smooth way. Facilitation can be done by one or multiple people. Some common places where facilitation may be necessary are house meetings, workshops like the one you're in right now, and organizing. Effective facilitation is important. Poor facilitation can result in misinformation, confusion, exclusion, and much, much more. Some positive effects of effective communication are building trust and community growth. As a facilitator, you take on a number of roles. This list is not exhaustive, but it kind of gives you a good idea of some of the things that a facilitator does in different settings. So a facilitator will ensure the group as a whole is empowered to reach their set objectives. They ensure the group follows its own set rules for dialogue and decision-making, but doesn't police people's behaviors. Facilitators address power imbalances forming within the group discussions and prevents attempts to overpower the group. Facilitators adapt the meeting to the group's evolving needs and remain an objective participant throughout the facilitation process. There are a lot of other roles that facilitators kind of take on, but it really depends on the context and the situation of the facilitation. Oppression in the facilitation process. As a facilitator, there are obviously many ways, some obvious, some not actually, that you can perpetuate oppressive systems. The next 2 slides are going to list some oppressive tactics that can be used by facilitators that perpetuate oppressive systems. We start with domination of the speaking space. So obviously, as a facilitator, you're going to be doing a lot of the talking, but that doesn't mean that you should be the one taking up the most space while you go through every topic on your agenda, so to say. Putting personal interests before those of the group This can look like a lot of different things, but it could look like prioritizing topics on the agenda, which is the last speaking point on this slide. It can look like showing blatant enthusiasm for certain topics over others just because they pertain more so to you or your personal interests. Again, that's not an exhaustive list of how these all are going to manifest because it's obviously going to be very situational. Not offering space for Black, Indigenous, people of color, and marginalized participants to speak. This is a big one, especially in, I think, cooperative spaces where a lot of the times houses are predominantly white. And in my personal experience, a lot of the white house members are much more comfortable speaking. And so as facilitator, not offering space for those for marginalized participants to speak perpetuates oppression within the meeting or the workshop. Interrupting participants is also oppressive. It shows a pretty blatant power imbalance. And again, prioritizing topics of personal interest on the agenda. Gatekeeping knowledge, especially if you are kind of a returning co-opper and you hold a lot of the institutional knowledge that is necessary for the cooperative to run smoothly or for meetings to kind of take on, well, I guess it mostly just keeping knowledge to yourself, and which kind of forces other people to come to you for that knowledge. Having one person facilitating all the meetings, this is, again, pretty blatant power imbalance. This person, while they could, again, be like a returning co-opper and be more comfortable, it's important to rotate facilitators throughout the year, throughout the meeting processes. Not making meeting notes readily accessible to all participants. By not making them accessible, that's perpetuating ableism and misgendering participants, which can be pretty blatantly transphobic, homophobic. Again, this list is not exhaustive, but these are just a couple of the oppressive tactics that have been highlighted in other meetings that I've attended, that other people have attended. If you can think of any oppressive tactics that you've seen in meetings or workshops that you've been in, feel free to share that with the group. We can update this list.